Okay, shooters, I guess we're coming to the end of our long and arduous journey in the reloading process. We started from the very beginning. As an example, if you just picked up brass off of the range, we've processed the brass, did everything through it, or to it. I've showed you all the different pieces of equipment that we use. And now we're on the final stages here, the reloading press for the final reloading. As a recap, once again, this is the Witten Gun Works tool head, and station number 1, nothing. Station number 2, the powder charge. Station number 3, the powder check. Station number 4, the bullet seater on a floater die. And station number 5, the bullet crimper. Before we go any further, let me mention a couple things about the reloading bench. Myself, I have my reloading bench set up in my office. In my office I had a limited amount of space. So the bench was actually designed to fit within that space, and also, more importantly, designed to fit myself. Height-wise, once again, it's really important for the bench to fit you. I shoot a lot of 45 and I shoot a lot of 223. Those are my two main staples, and I'll go through thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. And because of that, I reload thousands and thousands of rounds. And because I'm reloading thousands and thousands of rounds, I'm spending a lot of time behind my press. So it's good to make sure that your press is set up at your height so that everything is comfortable for you. For myself, like I might have mentioned in the past, I'll process whatever brass I have on hand, and a lot of times it's bulk because I don't like doing it like 200 rounds at a time unless I have to in a pinch. So what I'll usually do is I'll reload 1,000, 1,500 rounds at a pop. I'll process all the brass. Once the brass is processed, I'll put it up in the case feeder little by little, and I won't stop till I'm done. So for myself, it's not uncommon to be here an hour, hour and a half reloading. So it just emphasizes how important it is for the press to be set up correctly for yourself, so that you don't have excess muscle strain, or you're working your muscles more than you need to. Myself, I reload standing up, and one of the reasons I like doing it is I like putting my body into the reloading process. Maybe it's an Aikido thing or something, I don't know. But I like my body to help push the handle, and it actually takes up some of the muscles. Or how do I say? I don't use only just my arm muscles to do it, so I can keep on going for longer periods of time. For my press, you want to make sure that your arm is parallel to the ground, and once again, it'll reduce forearm, shoulder, and back muscle tension or stress. Another thing also is one of the benefits from having it at this height is you're able to look down and see the charge actually going into the casing itself. For rifles, you don't really have to worry about it too much because it's a net case and you can't really see it. But for pistol, it's an added plus to be able to look down and look at the charge that just got loaded into the case. In my case, it's not that important because I actually have the Dillon XL650, which gives me the powder check. But some of y'all might not be having, or might not have that function, so it's nice to be able to physically look at the powder. Another thing also is, let's talk about the bench here. My bench tabletop surface, I actually have a piece of, I believe it's 1x2 wood, and it's not like this, but the 1x2 is actually set up like this. So if this is the surface of my tabletop, my bench right now, the wood is like this, giving it a lot of support. Every time I push forward on the press, the wood surface of my bench surface, the tabletop, will never bow because of that piece of wood. Once again, I have the wood like this. So underneath both of my presses, I have a nice 1x2 piece of wood supporting the surface of my bench. My bench is also, it also has beefy L brackets, and these L brackets are attached to the wall, the wood joist within my wall. So my bench will not move whatsoever. If by any chance you do see any movement in my press throughout any of this process, it's because of the Dillon mounts. Because once again, my table is rock solid. Another thing I want to mention is once again, safety. Make sure you have a good set of eyewear on, or eye protection on. When you're dealing with something, a lot of the times all the action is going on right here, immediately in front of your face. Let me give you an example. Like about maybe a year ago, was loading some pistol rounds, and somehow one of the cases got loaded into the case feeder, and it had a live primer in it. Well, as it's going down and it got fed to my press, as I was depriming it, it actually went off, and it set off the chain reaction, and a couple of the primers on I guess a little primer thingamajiggy down here on the bottom. It went off, and it set off half the primers within my primer tube. And it was pretty loud, needless to say. It did startle me. On the Dillon presses, there's like a little plastic rod that actually pushes down on the primers to make sure the primers are getting fed. That rod actually shot up and stuck into my sealing. So great protection that Dillon specifically has set up on his presses, on their presses here. As a matter of fact, kudos to Dillon, because they actually sent me the whole, I guess, primer accessory, just the whole, not just the tube, but everything, just in case there was any expansion, any flex, any bowing, anything was stuck or something like that, just to ensure that everything is fine. They replaced everything and sent it to me for free. So kudos on Dillon for that. Another thing I want to mention too is also the powder. The powder that we use for, well, that I specifically use is H335. And a lot of the powders that y'all are going to be using for rifle rounds are ball powders. And ball powders have a tendency of flowing very, very, very nicely. If you guys know, if you need to make any adjustments on the powder drop, let's just say to drop 25.2 grains, 25.5 grains, 26 grains, 26.1 grains. It's a bear to make those fine adjustments just because of how easily the powder flows. So along those lines of the powder flow, as I'm reloading, when I crank the handle down, I don't want to rush anything. I want to go ahead and crank it down, hold it for a second or two, come up. Crank it down, hold it a second or two, come up. Remember, on a downward is when the round's actually going up and the powder's getting charged into the round. And I want to make sure that it's nice and smooth so all the powder trickles down in there. I don't want to rush anything. I want to go ahead and take my time. I want good, accurate rounds. And you will see that by taking your time, the round accuracy will be nice. You're going to have very nice, accurate rounds. The standard deviation is going to be low. So it's going to pay off. Speaking about the powder also, no matter what you do, you're always going to get a little bit of powder on the plate here. So as I mentioned before, I always have some 2 or 3 cans of compressed air sitting on my bench, somewhere on my bench. That's just part of my bench reloading setup, just having compressed air. And I'll give it a shot. Make sure everything is clean and running smoothly. In regards to the press itself, always wipe it down. You're going to be surprised that a primer might have gotten ejected, and an old primer might have gotten ejected and stuck somewhere. And all of a sudden the press is not working too good. And you have no idea why until you look around and you see, oh yeah, doggone primer was there where it shouldn't have been. So every once in a while, go over your press, give everything a once over. There's just things that get stuck within the press. Always wipe it down. Do not use any type of grease on your press, regardless of what anybody says. I've learned this from personal experience. A nice, light coat of oil, and then just wipe it down, and that should be more than enough. Your Dillon press should actually be working like just very, very smoothly, like butter. And that's about it. So let's go ahead and start with the reloading process. Let me mention a tip that I do. For myself, I use H335 powder. So you're gonna, if you know anything about the powder, you know that the case gets filled up kind of high. So if I'm a little sloppy, it'll index sharply, and the round will actually jiggle, or the case will actually jiggle. And sometimes it spills some of the powder off the top. So move everything smoothly. And what I'll do is, as the case is actually getting indexed to the position where I'm going to have to seat the bullet, I like meeting it kind of partway there and kind of walking it through and then dropping the bullet in. I don't like it to just snap in place and then I meet it with the bullet. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you here. Actually, I like meeting it. And what this does is it prevents, like I said, the case from jarring.